My main goal, my main objective is to make sure nobody leaves here without being inspired. And the Prodesse story, although it's really a nice story and a successful story, it's a little bit blocking and tackling. You know, there's not all that much sizzle to it. So to make sure that you go home inspired, I've decided to do something else to start out. We're going to do a Go Pack Go chant in here to make sure that you guys all get inspired right now. On the count of 3, everybody stand up, point that direction, and at the top of your lungs, Go Pack Go! 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 Are you inspired yet? Go! Go Pack Go! Go Pack Go! Go Pack Go! All right, they're done. All right, so let's keep with the Packer theme. Like Coach McCarthy, I have a game plan. And I have 4 quarters to my game plan. First quarter, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is a secret to all business success. It's a secret that I've neglected or overlooked a few times to my detriment. But we'll talk a little bit about that secret, something that you all know about, we'll revisit, and it's something I think that it merits talking about today. That's the first quarter. Second quarter, we'll talk a little bit about Prodesse and the Prodesse story. Some of you have heard it before. I'll economize. It's an interesting story, and that'll be the second quarter. Third quarter. Hey, the Super Bowl game, third quarter. Did you like that quarter? No. No, I was actually anxious. I mean, I was just about ready to take a pill. It was just terrible. It was really, really an anxious quarter. And then when I came back and saw the game on replay on the TiVo, I was just about sick. So, you know what? Let's forget about the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, if we have time, depending, and Penny will let me know, during the fourth quarter, then we'll talk about some of the deals I've been involved with then over the last year since I became unemployed after Prodesse was sold. I've been involved in 10 private equity deals in the last 12 to 14 months, and 2 of those I led. So a few interesting things there too, give you a little feel about what's going on. Most of this is investment in Wisconsin. So we'll go deals. All right, so first quarter. I brought props. Okay, so would you raise your hand if you've ever sold a product for a living? Ever sold a product? About half the people. Great. All right, now think with me. Have you ever sold a product that was so bad that nobody would buy it? You didn't make any money. You hated to get up. You didn't want to go to work. You didn't even want to go to, wake up in the morning. It was just terrible. In fact, it was so terrible that Dan Steininger, with his abilities, couldn't even sell it. And even at Catholic Nights, if they let Lutherans buy it, nobody would buy it. Think about that. How did you feel selling that product? Paul, I see you saying yes. Didn't you feel terrible? I guess then, that if you think about it, it didn't have WTW, what they want. And you wonder, why did we even try to sell it if it didn't have what they wanted? Then raise your hand if you've ever sold a product that has flown off the shelves. Flown off the shelves, George. Flown off the shelves, about half of you. Same thing. It probably had what they wanted. You had a kick in your step when you got into work in the morning. It was so good that you didn't even have to sell it. It sold itself. There are products like that. And you sit there and wonder, well, why am I selling this bad stuff when I could be selling this good stuff? And it really all comes down to selling what they wanted. And I learned this principle when I was age 6. And my 9-year-old sister had a product that I wanted. I really wanted bad. And in fact, she stored those products for me until I was able to acquire them. And this is what she This is what she, this is a nickel. This is what she provided to me. And I wanted that nickel so bad that, you know, what she wanted in return that I had to acquire was this little dime. So my sister, age 9, was trading her big nickels, because I wanted them so badly, for my little dimes. And this went on for about a year. No full disclosure. My parents finally shut her down. She ended up running the SBA nationally for Bush, as you know. Sue Engelleiter running against Herb Kohl for U.S. Senate. But anyway, that product was so bad, I was losing 50% every transaction, and I was going all over the place for a year trying to save these guys because I wanted her big nickels for my little dimes. So when I think about it, when I think about my business life, when I came out of college, I think about some products at the Equitable that we had. George, you would know, when you talk about group health insurance, I had products that were, you know, beating the pants off of everybody price-wise for the first 2 or 3 years in existence. It was really a terrific situation. I had what they wanted. When I had my motor coach company, much like Badger Bus, I was the operator, the operating partner for about 2 years. I made a financial investor, operated it, et cetera. Some of the best times during those 24 months was the Pope came to Denver, and 1 million people wanted to see the Pope. Well, I had 40 motor coaches. I had, you know, what they wanted. The Huskers won the national championship, you might remember, at the Orange Bowl. We had an option on 200 hotel rooms and 727, 230 passenger plane. You know, I had what they wanted. With Prodesse, doctors really wanted infectious disease tests for respiratory tests that were 100% sensitive. So if we have the flu, nobody really cares, right? It's not a huge big deal because we're healthy. But if you're young, old, you're immunocompromised, et cetera, it's a big deal. It's deadly. So when doctors really wanted that 100% sensitivity instead of the 50 to 75% sensitivity, we had a product for them. When labs weren't able to diagnose Clostridium difficile and C. diff's better, they weren't able to find out what gastrobug was flaring up based on what kind of antibiotics. We were able to put together a product that, again, was about 100% sensitive. On April 28th, 2009, when swine flu hit, Prodesse had the only FDA-cleared product that could be purchased to differentiate influenza A. And we had, you know, we had what they wanted at the right time. And that really made the whole difference in our company, because our revenues went from about a run rate of $7 million to about $25 million. I was actually out of the country for a week, the first week that really hit, and it was just incredible. We were on shifts. We ran out of shipping boxes. You know, can you imagine when you have a demand like that, the common denominator, the lowest common denominator of what isn't working ended up not being our supply, not being our people, not being able to invoice. It was actually shipping boxes. We couldn't get them fast enough. So really, what they wanted is something that throughout my business career has really made sense to keep an eye on, because I've made some mistakes when I have gotten involved with companies or products that didn't have something that people wanted. All right, let's go to the second quarter. Prodesse. In 2001, I was moving back to Milwaukee, and I met Jeff Harris. Jeff was general counsel of Apogent Technologies. Apogent had just IPO'd here in Milwaukee. I'm not sure what the price was, but then after they IPO'd, they sold to Fisher Healthcare. And in 2002, I ended up finding Prodesse, which is a whole different story. Techstar, MCWIP, founder, local physician, and all that. But the bottom line was what they wanted. It made sense to me to really try to do as much due diligence as possible. And in doing that, people said, hey, Tom Shannon, what do you know about biotech? And Jeff and I thought about that long and hard, And we decided, and we still decide today, that we think that it's better somebody having business knowledge and background running a scientific company versus somebody with a science background that doesn't have any business background running the company. So we went with that, and I didn't know anything about biotech, and I didn't know anything about infectious disease diagnostics. But Prodesse did have some products, and to me it was a marketing play. I knew what the widgets did. I didn't necessarily know exactly how the widgets were made, but I knew what they did, and I knew where the people that congregated that would purchase them. So in doing our due diligence, there were two really main factors that we felt very comfortable about with Prodesse. One was the products were revolutionary because of these sensitivities I talked about. Very, very sensitive DNA-based products where you take out DNA, you replicate it, you detect it, and basically it's as close to 100% sensitivity as you're going to get. So sensitivity was something that was unique and we felt was a differential advantage. The second then advantage and the uniqueness was that the physician founder researcher also came up with something called multiplexing. So what that meant simply is that if you take a sputum sample or some type of respiratory sample, from one sample he was able to detect multiple different organisms. So 3 at once, 4 at once, 7 at once. And that was revolutionary. And we thought, you know, if he has something this sensitive and he has something that is also able to multiplex, we're going to be able to take that and we're going to be able to move it forward. So we had 5 employees. We had about $165,000 in sales. And we started then hiring researchers and making more products. So we had 3 speed bumps between 2002 and our exit in 2009. Any one of those 3 could have been life-threatening. The first speed bump came within the first 2 years. We found out, unfortunately, that most lab directors wouldn't buy the product. And it wasn't because of the sensitivity, which they wanted, and it wasn't because of the multiplexing, which they wanted, because it was how hard the test was to actually perform. It was a 7 or 8 hour test. It could be done on one shift. You had to have a very skilled tech, and you're opening tubes, closing tubes, 40-page protocol. There just weren't that many lab techs that were available to run the test. So what then the lab directors did instead is that they got a fast, rapid, but not very sensitive test to their docs quickly and just couldn't find really the labor and all the hands-on that was necessary to develop the test. And it took about the first 12 to 18 months to figure that out. Now, part of our downfall was, from that standpoint, is that when we were doing our due diligence, our founder was an academic. There's nothing wrong with that. But our due diligence then was really talking to lab directors and clinicians in the academic setting. And those people were very interested in multiplexing and very interested in some of the products in theory that we were developing. But indeed, they weren't the buyers, right? They weren't the decision makers. And when it came to the decision makers, those people didn't want our products. So sales went up, but they didn't go up a whole lot, and we had to scurry. So after then 18 months, we ran to make products in something called real time, because then there were starting to be machinery out there that would do the extraction of the DNA, that would do the amplification. A tech could put it in these 2 machines and do some walk away, and the result would be only 3 hours without a lot of tech time. Now that was great, except that there weren't a lot of these machines out there. There wasn't a huge installed base. So we were making products that, yes, the marketplace wanted, but we were actually ahead of our time. The hardware, there wasn't enough of the hardware out there. There was some, and we were early, so that was a good thing. But it did take some time to then have the lab directors have the hardware in their labs in order to use our tests. But the second speed bump came when I started getting calls. Hi, Tom. Deb from Abbott Licensing. We think we have an opportunity for you. You know, this multiplexing, you might want to look at this Caskey patent. Tom, hi. Donna from Roche, Pleasanton, yeah. You know that PCR, polymerase chain reaction methodology you were using prior? Well, do you know we have 177 patents and we have some hooks that you're using real time now? Well, gosh, I think there's a licensing opportunity for you. Tom, hi, Ron Cook, BioSearch. Black hole quenchers, you're using those. Might you want to talk to us about some licensing opportunities? Tom, Deb again at Abbott. Did you hear about Stansbrid and Caskey patents for the organisms you're detecting? Anyway, this biotech area is a minefield of IP, intellectual property. And all of a sudden, as we started getting a name for ourselves, and is what happens when you become known and you're at shows, the big boys are tracking you, and when you start taking clients away from them, they want to do something to put you out of business. So I got all these calls, which precipitated all these letters, and for the next, we were working hard making the real-time diagnostic tests and moving over to that platform. At the same time, then, we started getting lots of people threatening to sue us. So that was a speed bump that could have been terminal. Thankfully, Jeff and myself, our other investors, patient people, were able to continue to write some checks. We were still losing money. We were very concerned about all these licenses, and these were licenses that can be $100,000, can be $1 million, and can have quite a royalty stream. But we were able then, for the next year, to negotiate licenses, and then our IP, which was a Medical College of Wisconsin, we didn't use any of that anymore. What we used then in our IP was a combination of lots of other people's licenses and IP. There were 6 or 7 different licenses that were very hard to get, actually. So now we're sitting here, we've got real-time tests, we're licensed appropriately, our sales are at 4 million, we're profitable, we're really happy people. Third speed bump. January 10th of 2006, I was in a board meeting, took a restroom break, and on the counter was FedEx, Steve Gutman, FDA, Office of In Vitro Diagnostics. Well, should I open this baby? I'm not sure. I got to go back into my meeting. And I opened it, and it was a warning letter. And warning letters with FDA are not pretty things to get. Adulterated, take off the shelves, you may not sell, cease and desist. Oh my God, I just about didn't go back into the meeting. I went into the meeting, put the letter in the bottom of my stack, concluded the meeting, and said, okay guys, this is what just happened. So what occurred then is that the FDA, these multiplex tests, had what's called enforcement discretion for 13 years. The FDA was not sure whether they should really be the ones that would regulate these diagnostic tests, yes or no. It was sort of indeterminate. They said that they should, others said that they shouldn't. They decided that they should, and that the enforcement obeyance that they had over the last